Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tanner's Favorite Things. I'm Tanner Knight, and today we're finally going to talk about this 1994 Gibson Explorer in Transvision Black. This is a guitar that I've had for a little bit, and I've played it on a few different videos, but I've never featured it, so it's about damn time that this guitar gets its own feature. So what is going on with this guitar? Why does it look like this? If you're familiar with 90s Explorers, then you'll probably think that the only color black that they have is just ebony. And it's not the case. We actually have a custom edition, which in this era, if you have this decal right here, custom shop edition, it means that this is a limited run of guitars. It's not like a custom shop or anything that special. It's still the Nashville Gibson plant producing these exact guitars just like they would the normal corollary, but they just have a slight difference to them. And in this case, it's the finish. Instead of our regular solid ebony, we have what's called Transvision Black. I had a hell of a time finding any information about this specific color, and the only location that I actually found that specific Transvision Black, which has a very kind of authoritative sounding name, was just someone else selling this exact same guitar from 1994. And 1994 is kind of an interesting year in Gibson because it is the centennial of the Gibson Company. 1894 is when Orville Gibson started the Gibson Company. And I believe that one was in Kalamazoo, but I could be wrong about the exact origins. Either way, the golden era of Gibson takes place in Kalamazoo, and this is obviously not one of those. This one was built in Nashville, which was opened in the 70s, but still, this is a centennial year for Gibson, 1994. And as such, they go away from their standard serial numbering system. Usually on a Gibson, you'll see the first digit is the first digit of the two-digit year. Like if it's a 9, that means that it was in the 90s. And then you get a 3-digit indication of what day it was built, the 321st date, the 33rd day of the year, which would be 033, or if it was the 154th, it would be 154, and then the preceding digit after that 3-digit day of the year code comes the actual year, the final digit of the year. So if it's 93147, then that would be the 314th day of 1997. So that's the standard way, but in 94, they buck the system and buck the trend and go with a new numbering scheme that actually shows up about 10 years later in 2014 again. But they only do it in the 90s for 1 year, this centennial year, and how it's different is that instead of having the number split up by the day of the year, it's actually just 94 right in sequence, 94, then a batch number that has a completely different numbering scheme after that. So we can't really tell what day of the year is unless someone has some alternate knowledge about this codation. But either way, you just get a single year at the beginning of it, 94. And if you take a look at this and try to read it like a normal Gibson serial number, then you would think, oh, this is a 1997 because we have a 9 in the first position, a 7 in the 5th position, and in between we have 3 digits. In this case, 400, which obviously says this is not that style of serial number because there's no 400 days in a 365-day year. We don't live on Jupiter or any of those other planets that occupy longer years. So that's kind of one of those things that you need to know about Gibson 1994 products because it's really the only year in the 90s that happened. 1995, we go right back to the normal numbering scheme. And what makes this even more confusing is that it is possible to find 1994 guitars with that normal numbering serial number scheme, but it's just much rarer than seeing a 94 in that year. So, centennial year, custom shop edition, is that particularly special? No, it's not that particularly special. I think the 90s in particular are known as being the Goodwood years. So this smack dab falls right in the middle of that Goodwood year as a 94 guitar. But beyond that, the custom shop edition is not terribly specialer, or if that's a word, or more special than the actual production runs. And in this case, what makes this guitar special is the Transvision Black finish. So what does this thing remind you of? I would say it reminds me of a TV yellow finish with the grain kind of shining through. And I don't know if it's better with the light on it or not, but you can see that the grain is kind of sunken in with that grain fill, and they didn't lacquer it all the way through so that you can't see any of the grain fill. That's typically what a Gibson ebony finish looks like, just smooth, glossy, kind of like a piano. This one really accentuates the fact that this is a mahogany body with a mahogany neck, and of course we have the rosewood fretboard. I think it would have been a nice addition if they could have had an ebony fretboard on this model. Since it was the 90s, that was an option, but you know, they went with the rosewood classic dots. So I can't complain too much about that, but I am a sucker for rosewood, especially on an Explorer. Beyond that, I think we have kind of a standard pickup configuration in here, the 498T and the 500R, I believe. I'll have to do a little bit of digging and I'll correct myself if that's incorrect, but that's typically what you'd find here in the 90s with these guitars. So let's get a little close-up of this guitar and take it all in. We do have the white triple layer pickguard. It is the white, black, white style of pickguard. No mintiness or anything, straight white. And here's our fretboard, looking good. Very little to report on this as far as like wear or anything that would be an issue for a player on this guitar. It's actually very rock solid and virtually unplayed, I would say. At least it wasn't abused like these tend to be. Our truss rod cover is blank. We have our mother of pearl Gibson logo at the very end. Very nice looking guitar, great headstock. Here's the back. We do have one route here to route all of our potentiometers. So you just got the 3 inline, so just a small option there. But beyond that, really good joining of the heel and the neck. No cracks, nothing weird. And our neck is very unplayed looking, smooth and glossy. Here's a good shot of that headshot with our custom shop edition. And I do like how the serial number is pretty apparent on this. You can tell that they used that lighter grain fill and just went to town on it before applying this coat of black, and they let it shine through quite a bit, so that's kind of nice. The ebony finish on these Explorers is not as easy to see the serial number, and you know, you can get into a little bit of trouble if you can't quite make out that serial number. The other thing that I think is unique to this guitar, I don't think most of the ebonies get this blacked out hardware. I think that's pretty slick. You don't see that very often in the 90s on Gibson or in any era really. It's kind of special to see specific black bridge posts, tailpiece, and tuners in black. So these are Gibson branded tuners, probably made by Schaller if I had to guess, but they do say Gibson on them, and they are black. And they have kind of this button tip on the end that looks really good with this guitar. So it's a very black affair with a rosy rosewood fretboard. Again, I wish it was ebony, but not the case. Another aspect of this finish that I think is better, at least over the ebony finish, is that you don't see nicks and dings nearly as much in this finish as you do on a regular, just flat ebony, because you do have that grain kind of shining through and hiding some of the imperfections. So I'm not going to say that this thing is perfect, but you can tell that there's a few nicks and dings in here if you look very closely. Otherwise, they're virtually invisible. I'd say the worst one is right here on this bout. I don't know if you can even pick it up, but just a little tiny ding, and otherwise it blends into this finish very nicely, and I consider that a positive because black does have the tendency to show every single blemish, fingerprints, scratches, dents, breaks in the finish, you name it. It's very reflective. So this is less reflective, and I think it's probably a satin finish, or it was a satin finish, because there are parts of the guitar that are less shiny, and those are the parts that have not rubbed up against somebody. But over here by the knob, it looks like that's been glossed up, and this part obviously right here is very glossy. That's where most of the contact happens. And the neck is also relatively glossy, but overall, I would say this is probably a satin finish when it started. Hard to say though, that's not really a spec that Gibson is known for doing in the 90s. All right, I think that you all came here to hear this thing, so let's go ahead and plug it in and get some tone samples from it and hear it in a full band mix. All right, so we've got this guitar plugged into my 5150. This is the PV 5150, a absolute icon of a metal amp. I use it for more than just metal. It does have a full range from just hard rock to good cleans as well, so we're going to hear all of that with this guitar. So 5150 is being plugged into this orange 2x12 PPC 212 cab featuring two Celestion creambacks. I've got a Sennheiser E906 positioned over that left speaker, and this thing can get pretty frickin' rowdy, so I think this is a good combination. So the way the wiring works on an Explorer is you have volume, volume, tone, but you do have the bridge volume, obviously corresponding to the front pickup or the one that is further left, and then our middle pickup might seem a little counterintuitive, but it's our bridge volume, and our final third potentiometer is our tone. And I'll be honest, I never wind the tone anywhere on this guitar other than full open, so we're just gonna rock with that and hear this with a few different pedals and see what it sounds like as an Explorer. If I had to say there was one group or one person that was associated with the Explorer or the Explorer shape, I'd say it's James Hetfield of Metallica, and I would say that as a result, this is known as a metal guitar. And that's not saying it can't do more. We'll hear a few other scenarios in which it's not very metally, but it does metal very, very well. And it's a black Explorer. What's more metal than that other than being custom shop edition? So I don't know if that's particularly metal. It's neither here nor there. But this is a very rowdy guitar. And 94, it's kind of seen the end of the hair metal craze and right in the middle of the grunge craze. I wouldn't say that this is very much a grunge guitar, even though it would totally do that just fine. It's a guitar, and as such, you could play a lot of different things on it. Okay, let's start with a bridge pickup. This is our clean tone. Very nice cleans, very usable. That's our bridge pickup. Here's the neck, should be a little bit sweeter. Yeah, I would say a little rounder, a little fuller, and not quite as bitey. I would say you can hear each individual note very clearly ringing through. Very nice pickups, just excellent, just cleans out of this guitar, which you probably don't expect. Let's not spend too much more time on the cleans. There also is a middle position, but that does about what you would expect and combines the two into a all equally beautiful clean sound. But let's go ahead and hear some dirt with this thing. I don't want to go right to the high gain stuff just yet, but let's hear a little crunch for a rhythm tone and see if we can nail that with the Tube Screamer. So it sounds great with the Tube Screamer, as you might guess. Let's hear that neck pickup just in case. And again, we are in the Ibanez Tube Screamer. Might be getting a little out of tune from wangling on it that much, but it is a Gibson after all. Okay, that's enough of the Tube Screamer. Let's move on to the JHS Nauticlon pedal. This is kind of one step up from a Tube Screamer type overdrive. I would say that this one has a little more gain on tap and is a little rowdier. So here's the JHS Nauticlon, one of my favorite kind of not super high gain pedals. So, very nice with the Nauticlon. That was the neck pickup, by the way, with the Nauticlon. A very acceptable mid-crunch sound approaching the higher gain territory. Speaking of, let's go right to the Metal Zone next. This is the Boss Metal Zone MT2, one of my favorite high gain pedals, and with this guitar and this amplifier, it should be money. So that's exactly what I look for in a high gain metal sound. It does have plenty of low end, but it's not just flubby and open and loud and weird. It's very tight and constrained and just hits you in the chest with double barrel. Similarly to the Metal Zone, the high gain option on the amp is obviously the right choice. So let's hear the lead channel on the 5150, bypass our pedals, and just hear full on amp power. There's a little bit of funkiness in this jack that you'll hear clicking like that. That's just a loose ground in there. I got to get in there with a soldering gun. I just haven't had a chance to do that. But if you position the cord well enough, it stays out of the way and you can play the guitar just fine like I have been. So that's what this guitar is capable of on its own. Let's go ahead and spool up some loops and I'll play some drums, bass, and rhythm guitar so that I can lay down a small crappy lead over that with this guitar and show you kind of the full potential of a full band mix with this guitar. It just cuts above. It's one of my favorite guitars, if not my favorite Gibson guitar, hard to say. I got a few of them and they're all great, but this one particular has a certain mojo that I just love. So let me go ahead and lay down some loops and then I'll get a lead on top of that. So what are my final thoughts on this 1994 Gibson Explorer in Transvision Black? I love it. I love this guitar. I love the feel of it. I love the balance of the Explorer shape. I don't know if it's different with the Carina wood, which is what it was originally built with back in 1958, but with mahogany, it just feels great. It's just such a nice feeling guitar. You might think that these big ass points would get in the way, but they don't. They're actually very ergonomic, whether you're on a seat or if you're standing up and strapping the guitar normally. So very, very ergonomic feeling guitar. These 90s Gibsons are just so good in most cases. Of course, you might find a dog here and there, but overall, you're gonna get a really good quality guitar from Gibson in the 90s, especially those mid-90s, 93 to 96, 97. Even into the 2000s, you see a lot of really good guitars, but this is really what is known as that good wood era in Gibson's history. I do think this is a one-piece body. If you take a look at the back, you cannot find a seam anywhere on here. So I'm kind of inclined to think that this is a one-piece mahogany body with a obviously one-piece mahogany neck set into it. So that's kind of a nice feature. I don't know if that's always the case with Explorers. In most cases, they're going to be painted, but every now and again you will find either a natural mahogany one or Carina one, obviously. But I'm pretty sure all of the Carina Explorers are one piece. So this one's also one piece for whatever it's worth. So this one's extra special to my heart. I know that the Custom Shop Edition is not necessarily a custom shop guitar. It's just not from the Custom Shop. It's from the Nashville, same line of guitars as all of the standard models, but just with a little something extra. So even still, knowing that, it's a little special because you just won't find this Transvision Black finish on hardly any guitar from Gibson moving forward. It's a very rare finish and moving backwards in time as well. I don't think it's ever been introduced before this. It's probably the first year. So it plays great, it sounds great, it looks great, it feels great. I have absolutely no complaints about this guitar whatsoever. I would love to hear if you have any experience with this year of Explorer, the 94 year, and what your serial number says on the back, whether it's that 94 in big chunk of text or split up by the year, the day of the year, then I'd love to know what you have in your collection. The good thing about this guitar is it's not so precious that I don't want to play it. I love picking this up and playing it. I love keeping it on a stand in my jam space and having my friends even play it, and everybody has the same experience with this guitar. Damn, that's a fine guitar. That plays great. And that's been the echoing chorus from all of the people who've been able to pick this guitar up and play it. So let me know what you think. Do you have any experience with the Gibson Transvision Black finish, the Explorer, guitars from the 90s? You name it. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Leave your comments below. Always like and subscribe. That helps me determine the direction of the content for this channel. And hopefully I will see you on the next one.